Hello, and welcome to Fandom Crash Course. And today we're going to be talking about Les Misérables. We're going to have a brief overview of what Les Mis is in general, a synopsis for anyone who hasn't ever seen the show or read the book or watched the movie or whatnot, and just a little fandom section that's going to have some information that would be useful to know in order to help you navigate the fandom if you're in the fandom and getting lost in it or anything like that. Les Misérables is considered one of the greatest novels of the 19th century. It's written by Victor Hugo. It was first published in 1862. It's affectionately referred to as the brick in the fandom because, well, it's apparently one of the longest novels ever written, with 655,487 words in the original French. Despite being a classic novel, it can also be considered difficult to read, as besides the 19th century style of writing being something that gets harder to parse as language continues to evolve over time, more than a quarter of the novel is spent on Hugo going on lengthy digressions about all sorts of things. The setup of enclosed orders, the history and construction of the Paris sewers. One of the most famous of the tangents is 19 chapters about the Battle of Waterloo, and only the last 2 pages of that feature any appearances by novel characters. Les Mis was wildly popular when it came out. Hugo was already such an established author that he didn't even need to sell it to the papers, like that whole old paid by the page kind of format of 19th century novels. They just had to advertise the new book and people bought it. It was read all over, not just in France. So many American Civil War soldiers were carrying it around with them to read it in the camp that, like, the Northern Virginia Army actually came to call themselves Les Misérables, and since they fought under Robert E. Lee. Since then, there have been 9 book adaptations and sequels, which are like officially published fanfiction. They weren't written by Hugo. 2 Western comic adaptations, 2 manga adaptations, 54 movie adaptations, 23 television shows, 10 animated shorts, movies, and shows, including one of my personal favorites, the 2007 anime Shoujo Cosette, in which Cosette is the main character and she is amazing. Anyway, 10 radio shows, and, of course, the most famous adaptation of Les Misérables, the musical. Les Misérables, the musical, premiered in Paris in 1980, with music by Claude Michael Schoenberg and French lyrics by Alain Boublil and Jean-Marc Natel. The original French concept had some differences from the more widely known version today. For example, Gavroche was sort of like a narrator. The song Little People was actually originally the song that Gavroche sings in the book, La Faute de Voltaire, La Faute de Rousseau. 5 years later, Herbert Kretzmer wrote in English libretto and lyrics, and Treveneux and Jean Card directed the English version of the musical, which debuted in London in 1985, opened on Broadway 1987, ran until 2003, which made it the 5th longest running Broadway show to date, and it had a load of tours and international and regional productions, and 2 Broadway revivals, one from 2006 to 2008, and another 2014 to 2016, and of course the 2012 musical movie adaptation directed by Tom Hooper, which really pushed Les Mis further into the popular culture And I think really, in my opinion anyway, revolutionized the musical movie industry for the future, especially with the live singing that really allowed the acting to step up instead of the actors having to match their own pre-recorded tracks like they used to do for musical movies. Now, if you've never seen Les Mis, or you're kind of curious, etc., I really do recommend watching the 2012 movie. It's beautiful. I love it. I love all the tiny little tweaks to just words in the lyrics and sequences of lines that really make it that much more understandable to the audience. They brought in little details from the book to really flesh out the universe beyond just using the musical as the main source material. I just rewatched it as part of my research for this video, and oh my god, every single time I do, I am filled with so much love and awe for that movie. Like, when it came out, I had been waiting for a musical Les Mis movie for 11 years before it finally hit in 2012. And I was so afraid that it was going to be terrible and that what the average non-theater person would be basing their opinion of Les Mis on was going to be this movie, and just, it blows me out of the water every time I see it. Even Javert, okay? I know that everyone likes to rag on Russell Crowe for straining to hit those high notes, but honestly, I feel like the movie did such a great job bringing across the character of Javert. The way he turns himself in when he thinks he's besmirched the mayor's honor, the rigidity of the worldview that he clings to so fiercely, the way he absolutely cannot comprehend it. If anything contradicts that viewpoint, the impossible standards that he holds everyone, and especially himself to. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point is, I do recommend watching the musical movie if you want to check out Les Mis. But for those of you that aren't up for watching the movie for whatever reason, maybe you absolutely cannot stand musicals, but you still want to have an idea what everyone's talking about, or maybe you have enough trouble already with spoken English, much less trying to understand it when it's all sung, especially when it's in the operatic musical style. One of my friends has that problem. Musicals are really hard for him to understand, and he gets lost easily, so that can obviously kind of hinder your enjoyment of it. Anyway, for anyone who just wants to know the general plot and key points, here's a synopsis. Les Misérables is a musical with a lot of characters, a lot of moving parts, spans something like 18 years. They used to put a synopsis in the playbill in between acts to try to help the audience follow along, but even then, it was a lot. I'm gonna try to tell it in a way that hopefully will make sense instead of throwing a whole bunch of names and places at you, and like, I know that can really complicate something very quickly, so we'll see if I can simplify it a bit. Maybe not, I don't know. It's a complicated show. We open in prison. The chain gang, which is basically prisoners put to hard labor. Our main character, John McJohn, or Jean Valjean, as they say in French, is being released to parole. We also meet Inspector Javert, total hard ass, completely unmoved by the fact that Valjean is in prison for 19 years already. Valjean goes out into the world to try to get a job, make a living for himself now that he's finally out of jail. But basically everyone is like, not gonna hire any criminals, not gonna let any criminals into my restaurant, not gonna let any criminals rent a room for me. Them's the breaks. Should have thought of that before you got yourself arrested. Eventually, he comes across this bishop. And the bishop is like, I worship God, and God says you should always be kind to your fellow man. So I'm gonna let you in and give you food and a place to sleep for the night and all that good Samaritan stuff. Unfortunately, at this point, Valjean is so hardened and bitter about all these people treating him like dirt. So he's kind of like, you know what? They're going to treat me like a criminal. I'm going to act like a criminal. I need money. No one's going to hire me. Fine. I'll steal it. So he gets up in the middle of the night, steals a bunch of silver plates and cups and stuff from the bishop, and he runs away. But he's kind of bad at being a criminal, so he immediately gets caught by the police. The police are all like, oh ho, what's this? It's a criminal with a bunch of valuable silver. Like, clearly this is stolen and you're going back to jail. Valjean is like, no, I cannot go back to jail. I just got out of there. Listen, I didn't steal this stuff. I swear, I'm not a thief. Please don't send me back to jail. And the police are like, yeah, okay, pull the other one, as if you didn't steal this. What are you talking about? Valjean is like very stubbornly insisting, I didn't steal it. It was a gift. It was a gift. The bishop gave me this silver. I didn't steal it. He just gave it to me. I'm not a thief. Please don't send me to jail. So the police are kind of like, sure. They take him over to the bishop. They're like, hey, bishop, this criminal here says you gave him this silver. Oh, obviously he's lying. Clearly he stole it. Don't worry, we caught him. We're going to throw him back in jail. And the bishop looks at them and he's like, yeah, I did give him that silver. The police are flabbergasted. Valjean is trying super hard not to look like this is news to him. The bishop is like, just keeps lying through his teeth. He's like, in fact, I didn't only give him that silver. I gave him this other silver too. He like gets some candlesticks that are silver. He's like, I can't believe you forgot to take these candlesticks, bro. It's like, these are even more valuable than all that other silver that I totally gave you. What are you doing? It's like, so the police are unhappy, but what can they do? They go on their way. The bishop gives Valjean even more silver than he originally took, and he's like, listen, it's like, you have to understand right now, I did this because God says that we have to be kind here. Now I've saved your soul for God. So what you have to do is turn your life around. It's like, be a better person. Follow what God wants you to do. Be kind to people. Be good. Stop stealing. Valjean is sitting there now. He's like, oh my God, I really could have just gone straight back to jail just now. Oh my God, I cannot believe I just did that. I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm a thief. Oh my God, I spent all this time whining about them calling me a criminal and I totally just stole something. It's like, if it weren't for that bishop being really nice and kind of dumb and trusting, I would have been screwed. He's like, he's right. I've got to fix this. I've got to turn my life around. I've got to start being an honest man, do everything right. And he's like, but I know that even though I have this silver right now, it's not going to last me. It's like, no one's going to hire me because I'm a criminal. So naturally, he decides that the best course of action now is to just go on the run, be a fugitive, start introducing himself to people by a different name. He's like, I'm not a criminal, Valjean, I'm a totally normal person. It's like, it's 1815, no one's gonna know, it'll be fine. Time skip. 8 years later, Valjean is now living in a little factory town. Everyone thinks his name is Monsieur Madeleine. He owns a factory that has turned the economy of the town around. I mean, everyone's still dirt poor because it is the early 19th century, but it's better than it used to be. He's known to all of the citizens in the town as such a good, kind man that they actually elected him mayor. Everyone loves him. Things are going really good for him, considering that 8 years ago he was like getting kicked in the street. Valjean's life, doing pretty well. Unfortunately, not everyone's life is doing very well. Remember that whole everyone's still dirt poor thing. So here's where we get introduced to another new character. This new character's name is Fantine. She is really struggling to make ends meet because she's a single mom. She needs to provide for her child, her daughter, but she is having a lot of the same troubles that Valjean was having before, where no one wants to hire a woman if she is an unwed mother. They're all, women should stay virgins until they're married, blah, blah, blah. You're a disgrace. We don't want your kind around here. So Fantine is going around struggling to find work. Everyone's turning her away. People aren't even letting her rent apartments or anything because the moment they see that she has this kid. And eventually she comes across this couple who run an inn. And the couple are like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's rough. That really sucks. You know what? I have an idea. Why don't you leave your kid here? Like, we already are raising kids of our own. She can play with our daughters. Everything will be great. We can raise her here. You can go find work now that you're not lugging a child around and just send back the money to help pay for her. And then, once you save up enough, once you get back on your feet, then you can come get her. Like, no problem. It'll all be good. Fantine is like, oh my God, thank you so much. You're a total lifesaver. Oh my God. She's like, Cosette is her daughter. She's like, Cosette, mommy loves you. I'm gonna be back soon. Everything's gonna be great. We'll see. So she leaves her daughter, Cosette, there with the innkeepers, and she goes off to this other town that she's heard is hiring for their new factory, which is Valjean the mayor's factory over in Valjean's town that he's the mayor of. So she goes over there, she goes to the interview. They're like, oh, you got any kids? She's like, nope, no kids. And they're like, oh, great. Like, that's great. Unwed women with children are the worst. Anyway, you're hired. So Fantine is now working at Valjean's factory, and she's trying to save up enough money to be able to collect her daughter in like a few months' time. And, actually, once she has her, be able to feed her and live in an apartment or something in the town. Unfortunately, her money saving is going kind of more slowly than she anticipated because the innkeepers, who are called the Thénardiers, keep writing her all these letters that are like, Cosette is cold, she needs a warm winter skirt. Like, Cosette got sick, we need money to take her to the doctor. Stuff like that. So even though she's working at the factory, Fantine is really not doing too great. She's sending all the money she can get her hands on to Cosette. Her section manager at the factory keeps sexually harassing her. Just everything is going really bad. And then just to really make everything worse, this bully woman coworker at the factory finds out that she actually has a kid and just tells everybody. And they're all like, wow, you're a liar. You lied in your interview. You're fired. No more income. Thénardier's demanding more and more money every day. She needs to send money to Cosette. She doesn't have a job anymore. She starts trying to get money anywhere she can, working every odd job that's possible, selling anything she can. She sells her jewelry, her mother's locket, she sells her hair, she sells her teeth. Eventually, she's got basically nothing left. She ends up becoming a prostitute on the streets. Like, she got evicted a long time ago. She's not eating food. She's sending everything she can to Cosette. Everything sucks. Everything sucks. It's really terrible. She's sick. She's miserable. She's a prostitute. Some assholes on the street start groping her and like shoving snow down her dress in the middle of winter, and she just flips. She lashes out, she scratches one of them across the face. He's like, how dare you? I'm gonna make you pay for this. I'm gonna report you to the police and get you sent to prison, you little whore. Fantine is like, obviously, she's like, oh my god, I can't go to prison. I cannot go to prison. I need to keep sending money to Cosette. So she's begging him, oh my god, please don't report me. Naturally, with his wonderful timing, the police comes by to see what's going on over here, and oh look, it's Inspector Javert, that same cold-hearted prison guard from when Valjean first was getting out of prison. And she's like, please don't send me to jail, please, I have a daughter, she needs me. Javert is like, I don't care, you break the law, you go to jail, that's how things work. In the typical convenient coincidence way of stories, Valjean also just happens to kind of be walking by, and he comes over. He's like, what's going on here? So he looks at the situation, right? He sees this person begging not to be sent to jail. He sees the policeman, Javert, not caring at all, being ready to just sentence her. And he remembers how this is just like what happened to him 8 years ago with the bishop and the silver that he stole from the bishop. And Valjean is like, I got a second chance. I'm gonna pass it on. So he's like, hold up. Don't arrest this woman. It's like, I'm the mayor, so what I say goes. And I say, you're not sending her to jail. Instead, we're going to take her to the hospital. We're going to go get her daughter, and she's going to live happily ever after. The end. In your face. Javert's like, you can't do that. That's not how the law works, but hey, Valjean's the mayor. So anyway, again, very convenient. They immediately get distracted from any impending argument by a big commotion over a couple blocks. This guy is being crushed to death in the middle of the street because he had one of those horse-drawn carts, and the cart broke and it fell on top of him. It's really heavy. He's getting crushed. All these civilians are standing around, freaking out. They're like, it's too heavy, we can't save him. Like, anyone who tries to save him is just gonna end up crushed as well. Valjean is like, ha, that's what you think. But guess what? I'm actually super strong. So he goes over, he picks up the cart with his Hulk strength, and they manage to save the old dude that's being crushed underneath it. But Javert, watching all this, is like, oh my god, I can't believe this. You're so strong. He's like, you know, it's so funny. If I didn't know any better, I would think that you are totally this old prisoner that I used to know named Jean Valjean. That guy was also freakishly strong. It's like, but I know you can't be him because you're the mayor, and he was this dirty criminal who actually has already been caught and arrested. It's like, yeah, we got him. He's going back to jail soon. And Valjean is like, holy shit. It's like, what? They caught somebody. They think this dude is me. It's like, they're gonna send him to prison. He's like, I'm free. I'm clear. They're not gonna come after me anymore. But then he thinks about it some more, and he's like, hold up. That's not good, though. He's like, I made a really good life for myself here. I own a factory. I'm the mayor. And it's not just me who needs me to be free, right? I have all my employees. What are they supposed to do if I'm in jail, huh? It's like, I've got Fantine in the hospital. I've got to go get her daughter, Cosette. It's like, I promised her I'd do that. This is all stuff these are all good reasons for me not to go back to jail. He's like, oh, but can I really just let this poor innocent dude go to jail for crimes that I committed? It's like, that would be wrong. God wouldn't like that. Also, it would really suck. He's like, I know that jail is really terrible. I can't condemn an innocent man to go to jail for something I did. That's really wrong. So he decides to go off, storm into the courtroom a few towns over where the sentencing is happening. He's like, listen, you can't send this guy to jail. He's not Jean Valjean. I'm Jean Valjean. I'm the person, I'm the criminal. Don't send him to jail. And then he just leaves. I don't know. He comes back to his town again. He goes visit Fantine in the hospital. Fantine is like, oh my god, it's you. You brought Cosette, right? And he's like, oh yeah. Listen, I know I said I was gonna be getting Cosette like yesterday, but I had something to do. It's like, but I swear I'm gonna go get her soon. I'm gonna go right now. I'm gonna get her. We'll be back in just a few days. You two are you're just gonna live happily ever after. She's gonna grow up happy and educated and never be sad or hungry a day in her life. Fantine is like, oh my god, thank you. You're an angel sent from heaven. This is so great. Like, thank you so much for raising my child. Everything's gonna be wonderful. And then she dies, and Valjean is like, holy shit. He's holding her dead body. He's like, oh my god. Of course, at that moment, with a wonderful sense of timing, Javert shows up. He's like, oh ho ho, I see. You are a criminal. You've been a criminal this whole time. Well, I'm here to arrest you, criminal. And Valjean is like, oh my god, are you... Dude, he's like, listen, this woman, Fantine, is dead now. I totally just promised to go get her kid. It's like, I really have to do that first. I have to make sure that the kid is all right. I promised her. She was her dying wish. I've got to make sure the kid's all right. Javert's like, yeah, okay. He's like, you think I'm an idiot? It's like, you're a criminal. I'm a policeman. I'm going to arrest you. That's how this works. So Valjean is like, no, I'm not down with that. So he uses his Hulk strength to break a bunch of really sturdy furniture and overpower Javert and escape. So Valjean goes off to go get Cosette. Javert is left hurt, but eventually gonna get up and chase him. Alright, you tired of all this plot yet? Good, because we're just getting started. What Fantine did not know was that the Thénardiers, the innkeepers, they're actually terrible people. They're keeping all the money that Fantine has been sending to take care of Cosette for themselves. They've just been using Cosette as like an abused little house elf, and they're also regularly swindling and robbing every guest they have stayed there in. So Valjean shows up, he finds Cosette is actually this abused, miserable child, and he bribes the Thénardiers with 1,500 francs so that he can take Cosette away from them. Javert's hot on their tail, so they are trying to run away. They climb over this huge wall, and they end up inside of a church convent, just full of, all these little girls learning to be nuns and things like that. And they run into a groundskeeper there. It's like, oh no, the jig is up. Someone caught us already. Good job, Valjean. You're great at running away. But by amazing fortune, the groundskeeper is actually that same old man that Valjean saved from getting crushed by the heavy car earlier. So the man is like, here's what I'm gonna do. I really owe you. He's like, I'm going to tell the nuns here that you're my brother and that Cosette is my niece so that you can get a job here as a fellow groundskeeper. And Cosette can go to school with all the other little girls and be raised in the convent. And, there's this whole convoluted con they have to pull off to make that work. It's not in the musical. It's this whole thing where they sneak Valjean out inside of a coffin, and then he almost gets buried alive, and then they have to come back in. Anyway, that's not relevant right now. It's time for another time skip. 9 years later, 1832. Valjean and Cosette have left the convent and are living in Paris. They spend a lot of time giving bread to starving street children and things like that because they both know what it's like to be a poor, sad beggar, and they want to help people wherever they can. There are loads of poor and discontent people. It's been 43 years since the French Revolution began. Nothing seems to have gotten better. General Lamarck, who seems to be the only man in government who shows mercy to poor citizens, is about to die, and then they'll have no one to stand up for them. There are young activist college students running around calling for revolution. The Thénardiers are there. They're still poor criminals, still swindling people and running a criminal gang. Javert is there being a police inspector still. Everyone's in Paris all at once. It's like Bossing say. Time to introduce even more characters. We've got Eponine. She's the Thénardier's daughter. She used to be kind of like the Dudley Dursley to Cosette's Harry Potter. Now, of course, she's grown up into a more sensible teenager, knows that her parents suck, but she's been raised in her parents' criminal ways. We've got Gavroche, who is a little kid, sort of. He's actually one of Eponine's younger siblings. He was abandoned early on in life because his mom was basically like, oh, ew, a boy? I only want daughters, so she just sold any sons that she had. Anyway, Gavroche is this little street urchin. He mostly runs around causing trouble, smashing streetlights with rocks, things like that. But he does take care of a lot of other little street kids, so that's cute. The activist college students, there's a whole group of them, 9 core members. All of them have their own names and their personalities, but the musical was kind of like, that's too much information to keep track of, so all you really need to know is that they're young idealist revolutionaries. We've got Enjolras, the leader. Every time you see him, you know this is the revolutionary group. And there's Marius. Marius, super important for plot-fueling love triangle drama. Marius appears to be a fellow revolution leader in the musical. In the book, he'd kind of not been going to their club meetings for 2 years at that point, and he had this whole subplot where he was raised by his rich grandfather, and his grandfather always told him that his dad was a worthless layabout, and then he found out his dad too late, and then he shunned his grandfather for keeping them apart, and he went to live this poor existence, refusing any of his grandfather's money, and he blindly took on all his father's political beliefs, which caused a lot of tension with the other students because they didn't agree with him. And then his father's last request was for Marius to find Thénardier and help him out because he thinks Thénardier saved his life in the war, even though he didn't actually. And then Javert wanted Marius to help arrest his next door neighbors, who were actually the Thénardiers, but Marius didn't know that because they were under a different name. And then they were all trying to kill Valjean, and Marius didn't want them to kill Valjean. It was this whole convoluted thing. But you don't have to worry about that. They cut all of that out of the musical. Too complicated. Anyway, what we do get is Marius, activist student, friends with Eponine. He's out on the streets trying to drum up revolutionary sentiment, and he runs into Cosette. She and her adoptive dad, Valjean, are out, giving money to beggars. And in typical musical style, they look into each other's eyes and they fall instantly in love. Meanwhile, Thénardier, conning good Samaritans in the area, as he does, and he tries to make Valjean his mark. Unfortunately, he recognizes Valjean. He starts kicking up this whole fuss about how Valjean stole Cosette all those years ago and whatnot. Javert comes along because he's the police, and he's like, oh, what's going on over here? Valjean, of course, is like, oh shit, it's Javert. I gotta get out of here. So he grabs Cosette, runs away. Marius is like, oh, I wasn't done talking to that woman. She's the love of my life. He's like, Eponine, best friend, please find Cosette for me. I need to talk to her. Eponine is kind of like, I'm secretly in love with you. And Cosette's the girl that I used to pick on. This sucks. But yeah, all right, we'll do it. So here we have Eponine goes off to look for Cosette. Javert leaves to reaffirm his vows as a policeman and the fact that he's never going to stop hunting criminals ever. Valjean has run off with Cosette to go back to hide. Thénardier plotting to attack Valjean and get, I don't know, revenge for taking away his slave all those years ago, and also to steal all his money because he's like, oh, that guy's gotten really rich. Marius, total hard eyes, goes to his club meeting, his activist club meeting. He's at the activist club meeting. Marius is there. All his friends are kind of ribbing him about being so head over heels for this girl. They're just kind of laughing, having a good time. And Gavroche comes in. And Gavroche, the little kid who's all well connected with the street news, he's kind of like, hey, listen, General Lamarck died. He finally died. The one guy in government that we all could trust to have our backs is gone. Government's gonna really come down on us now. This is really bad. So the students, the activist students, they're like, oh man, what are we gonna do? Like, you know what? We have been calling for revolution this whole time. Everyone's gonna be really pissed now. Everyone's gonna be all up in arms now that General Lamarck is dead because they think that they've got nothing left now. We're gonna have the revolution at the funeral. So they all start planning their revolution. Marius leaves. He goes off to go be a fool in love because, remember, Eponine, his friend, he's asked Eponine to find Cosette, the love of his life, that girl he bumped into on the street earlier. So Eponine brings Marius to Cosette and Valjean's house. Marius and Cosette, they make out against a tree and they tell each other their names and they profess their undying love for each other and all that stuff. And Eponine is there too, sulking in the background. Action keeps building. I know there's so much stuff happening, right? Thénardier shows up too. He's there with his gang. He's come to attack Valjean after seeing him in the square earlier. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get that guy. Eponine sees him. She's like, oh my god, my dad is here. This is really bad. He's gonna attack these people. Marius really likes Cosette. This is such a mess. So Eponine starts screaming. She's to warn Marius and Cosette. She's makes Thénardier's gang run away because they don't want all this attention on them when they're about to break into a house. Marius and Eponine hide because they don't want to get caught in this commotion either. Valjean comes running out of the house, freaking out because he just heard a teenage girl screaming in the garden where he left Cosette. Cosette, of course, she doesn't want her dad to know she's sneaking around meeting boys. So she just kind of makes up some tale oh, I was out here and I just, I saw these mysterious figures, these mysterious guys out there in the street. They really scared me. That's why I screamed. No big deal. It's definitely not a boy. Of course, misunderstandings abound, and Valjean, who just had a really close call with both Javert, the policeman who's never stops hunting people, and Thénardier, the guy who totally knows that he's a criminal and who he is, and that he took Cosette. He thinks those pieces are going to be enough for Javert and the police to come after him again. He's like, oh man, Javert must have found me again. He's already poking around my street. He's going to find me soon. We've got to run away again. So Valjean is like, all right, come on, Cosette. We're going to run away. We're going to leave the country. Cosette is like, oh my god, are you kidding me right now? Wrap up what everyone's doing, right? Valjean trying to run away with Cosette, because running away is what he does. Cosette and Marius, very sad about the idea that they're going to be split apart when they only just found each other. Eponine is still sad that Marius likes Cosette instead of her, but, you know, she's not trying to force him into anything. She's just sad about it. Activist students plotting a revolution. Javert, who, despite what Valjean thinks, is actually not skulking around Valjean Street. Javert, as part of the police, is planning to infiltrate the students and their revolution. The Thénardiers are around being scum-sucking criminals, planning on crime as usual. All this stuff about to happen, lots of different people doing lots of different things. Your head hurting yet? Ready for this to be over? Guess what? That's only the end of Act 1. Act 2 moves much faster though, don't worry about it. I promise it's faster. Basically, the revolution starts. This was actually a real event in history, by the way. The June rebellions of 1832, sparked by the death of General Lamarck. It lasted for 2 days, which should give you an idea of how this is going to go. So, details of how the events at the barricade play out differently, depending on which version of Lemaitre you're following. Like, for example, in the original musical, Marius sends Eponine away from the barricade with a letter to Cosette, and in the book and in the 2012 movie, he sends Gavroche. At any rate, here are the things that always happen. We've got Javert, who has infiltrated them, does get revealed as a police spy, and he gets captured by the students. Marius sends a letter to Cosette, which gets intercepted by Valjean. Valjean is like, oh my god, Cosette has a secret boyfriend and he might die, holy shit. He's freaking out. He's like, all right, I gotta figure out who this kid is. I need to go to the barricade and meet him. So Valjean runs to the barricade to find Marius. When he gets there, Valjean sees Javert all tied up in the corner, and he's like, hey, kids, students, activist students. He's like, I'm gonna ask you a favor. He's like, I want to kill Javert. Let me kill him. And the kids are like, all right, I guess. Like, you seem like a trustworthy old guy. You came in here to help us out, even though you're an old guy and not a student like us. You saved our lives a little bit doing some things. You pointed out some snipers that were gonna kill us, so, you know, sounds cool. We'll let you kill him. Valjean goes over towards Javert. Javert's like, yes. Very dramatic. He's like, I see. Valjean, you've come to kill me at last. You knew I would never stop hunting you, and you're seizing your moment. And Valjean is just like, dude, shut up. Cuts him free. He lets him go. He's like, go on, get out of here before any of them realize I'm not actually killing you. And Javert's like, I don't get it. What are you doing? That's not right. That's not right. You're a criminal. You're a criminal, and criminals always do the wrong thing. So you're here to kill me. And Valjean's like, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not actually a bad dude. Just go. Go. It's fine. Go. Javert's like, but, you know, he wants to live, so he leaves. The fight goes on. Valjean figures out which one is Marius, but he doesn't actually talk to him. The revolution's happening. The kids are refusing to back down, even when the National Guard is there, all like, surrender, surrender, otherwise you'll die. And they're like, we'll never surrender, never give up, never surrender. We're gonna become martyrs. So basically they all start dropping like flies. You know, Eponine gets shot and she confesses her love for Marius and she dies. Gavroche goes out onto the other side of the barricade to try to loot all the dead soldier bodies for more ammo, and he gets shot and he dies. Everyone dies in the fighting. Basically, they all just get shot and die, except for Marius, who just gets conveniently, you know, grievously wounded and knocked unconscious. Valjean sees that Marius is still alive. He's like, well, this kid is the entire reason I came out here anyway. So he grabs Marius's unconscious body and tries to run away from the fighting with it. He wants to save Marius's life. Unfortunately, you know, the guards, the street is full of all the guards, the National Guard, the army. They're all coming, trying to kill any revolutionaries they still see standing about. So Valjean is like, how do I get Marius out of here? And what he ends up doing is he goes underground into the sewers to try to get away that way instead of going through the streets where they could just be seen and killed. He goes into the sewers, doesn't really know what he's doing. The sewers are a huge maze. Luckily, I guess, Thénardier is still a gross, skeevy asshole, and he's also in the sewers, just being a criminal, using it as a secret passageways to be gross and, you know, rob corpses and stuff like that. Valjean meets up with Thénardier, is able to threaten Thénardier into telling him how to get out of the sewers, and manages to escape with Marius's unconscious body. At this point, most of our cast is dead. Cosette is at home. Thénardier is still in the sewers being a terrible human being. Marius is unconscious. Valjean is carrying Marius and out of the sewers. And Javert, who Valjean had let go earlier, is waiting at the sewer exit for Valjean. Because why wouldn't he be? Valjean is like, alright, hi Javert, what's up? He's like, listen, I know you're here to arrest me because that's what you do. It's like, but this kid here, Marius, he's really badly hurt. He needs to get to the hospital. So let me get him into the hospital before you arrest me. Javert's like, are you kidding me? It's like, this is the same thing that you said 9 years ago. It's like, you were all, oh no, Javert, I'm gonna not let you arrest that woman who attacked that guy. He's like, I'm gonna take that woman Fantine to a hospital instead. And then it was like, oh yeah, I turned myself in, except not really. Instead of getting arrested by you, I'm gonna run off and steal a little girl from some innkeepers. It's like, you break the law, you get arrested, that's how it works. Valjean is like, but the kid is dying. I really need to do that first. It's like, look, I promise you can arrest me after. Just let me take the kid to the hospital. But Javert's like, fine, whatever. Go ahead, go, take him. Get out of here. What's even the point of anything anymore? So Valjean is like, all right, sweet. Valjean goes off with Marius, take him back to Marius's rich grandfather. Javert is left behind to just be like, what is my life? What is my life anymore? What's anything? He's like, this is, my entire worldview has been shattered. It's like, I might have been wrong about the way the world works my whole life. Like, I can't believe I just let Valjean go. I've been hunting him for like 17 years now. It's like, Valjean let me go? He's a criminal. He should have killed me. The fact that he didn't, I don't know what to think. He's like, I just can't comprehend this. I can't comprehend this at all. Criminals aren't merciful or honorable people. They're criminals. It's like, everything's topsy-turvy. I can't handle this. I can't deal with this. I don't know what the world is anymore. I don't know anything anymore. So Javert can't hack it, and he kills himself. Anyway, from there, nearing the end of the musical, if you couldn't tell by all the dropping bodies, we've just got a little bit of a wrap-up. Marius is super sad because all his friends are dead. Cosette is reminding him, like, hey, we're still here for each other. Valjean is his over-dramatic self, and he goes to Marius. He's like, Marius, listen, I'm a horrible criminal. Now that Cosette has you, I should disappear forever and never show my face again. I mean, what if the police come to arrest me while I'm living with the two of you? It's like, that would be dishonor on her. I don't want that. It's like, it's for the best if I just go. And Marius is like, wow, horrible criminal, really? Gee, I mean, I know you did kill that police inspector in cold blood at the barricades. It's like, I guess it isn't such a shock. It's like, gosh, yeah, I don't know if I want to be harboring a murderer. All right, well, if that's what you want to go away forever, I guess I don't have a problem with it. So, Valjean runs away, which is what he's best at. Marius continues to recover from his wounds, marries Cosette. They're living happily together. You know, people who have both experienced horrible conditions and extreme poverty and then inherited a lot of money, and they're doing pretty good. Their peaceful little happy married life boat gets shaken a little bit when Thénardier shows up, because he can't ever go away, can he? He's always there, like a bad penny. He shows up, he's looking for cash. He tries to blackmail Marius, like, hey, guess what? Your father-in-law? He's a criminal and a vicious murderer. And Marius is just like, oh, yeah, I know that already. Nice try. Like, Thénardier's like, what? He's like, what? No, I'm telling you, he's a really bad guy. You gotta pay me money to keep quiet about this. Marius is like, look, I already know that he's the criminal Valjean, and also that he killed that police inspector Javert. So you don't have anything over me. Thénardier's like, ha, yes I do. I do know things you don't know. In fact, you know what? You are pretty dumb, because Valjean did not murder Javert, okay? Javert killed himself. He jumped off a bridge. It's like, you know who Valjean did murder, though? Not an asshole police inspector that no one would be sad to see go. No, he murdered some kid. Yeah, he's like one of those little revolutionary brats. I saw him. He used all the chaos of the barricades and the fallen revolution to get away with murder. He was carrying this murdered corpse around in the sewers, dumping bodies. I saw him dumping bodies that night. He's like, yeah. He's like, in fact, here's my evidence. Look, I have evidence that I was there. I stole this from the corpse that Valjean was dumping. It's like, you see? He's a murderer. He's a really bad murderer, and you need to pay me money to keep quiet about this. Marius is like, what is that? That's mine. It's like, that's mine. That's my coat or my ring or, you know, whatever it is in whatever version that you end up watching or reading. He's like, holy shit. He's like, that wasn't a dead body. That was me. He was carrying me. He saved me. Oh my god. This whole time I have thought that Valjean was some sort of horrible, vicious murderer. And he, not only did he not kill Javert, he also saved my life personally. Oh my god. It's like, this is really bad. I've made a terrible mistake. Marius runs off to try to fix a mistake, punches Thénardier in the face, grabs Cosette. They run to the village where Valjean has been all alone, sequestered himself. He's like growing old and frail. Oh, Cosette, I'm so sad that I had to leave her behind. She's my daughter and I love her, but it's for the best because I'm a horrible criminal. Oh. Marius and Cosette run in. They're like, oh my god, Valjean, no. We forgive you. There's nothing even to forgive. We love you. Please. Like, come back. We're so sorry. We're such idiots and we let you leave. Valjean is like, oh, I'm so happy. My children, they've forgiven me and they love me. I can die happy. And he dies. So that's cool. And that's the end. Isn't that cheery? Okay, no. It really is a very uplifting sort of ending, though, because they end on this very nice reprise of Do You Hear the People Sing? It's uplifting. It's all about the power of love and never stop fighting for tomorrow and looking forward to the future. Like, be hopeful. So, it really is very nice. And that's Les Mis. Such a lengthy story. Wow. Alright, if you are still here and you didn't quit 40 minutes ago, let's move on to some info about the fandom. Even knowing all of that, you're still likely to get a little lost in the fandom if that musical plotline is all you know about Les Misérables. Because, mostly, honestly, because of this one thing. Remember how I said activist college students? There's a whole group of them, 9 core members. All of them have their own names and their personalities, but the musical was kind of like, that's too much information to keep track of, so all you really need to know is that they're young idealist revolutionaries. The revolutionary students weren't really a huge part of the musical beyond just existing to complicate Marius's legions and the barricade battles existing and being a huge, plot point for things, gathering characters together, killing them off, etc. But those barricade boys are a major part of the fandom of Les Mis. The group in general is called Les Amis de la ABC, the Friends of the ABC. It's like an undercover sort of pun. They market on the surface as a group that wants to educate children, and in reality, they are activists. The ABC in French is pronounced ABC, which is like the abased. They're friends of the abased. Anyway, the fandom loves them. Most fic and such that I've seen, it's a cast of that group, the student activist group, along with the other young people like Cosette and Eponine and Gavroche. And then other main Les Mis characters tend to be more like adjacent. They're like, oh, Cosette's dad, Valjean. Like, oh yeah, Eponine's parents, the Thénardiers. I mean, it's not to say that it's all like that, Fandom tends to span basically everything anyone can think of, especially when you're in a big fandom like Les Misérables. That said, the Les Amis, they're a large part of this fandom. Oh, something else that I think is really cool about the Les Mis fandom is that since most of the characters don't really have physical descriptors in the book, the fan artists, they just go wild. No two artists really seem to draw them all the same. Characters will be all sorts of shapes and sizes, different races and genders. It's like something of a joke in the fandom that there will be a new artist and you'll think you'll have figured out who everyone is, but then, it's not just the core group in this picture. Oh man, which one is that? I don't necessarily want to just list off a whole bunch of names that you're never going to remember, but what are you going to do? So I'm going to try to keep the descriptions of the characters to sorts of just the common factors you're going to see the most often when you're in the Les Mis fandom. Just like the fandom characterization stereotype of that character, sort of. Obviously, characters are more than just a few traits, but it's just like a quick intro guide, really, to help when you want to identify the characters. And then, as you keep on exploring the fandom and keep on seeing them, more details for each one of them was going to flesh itself out. So, here we go. The Friends of the ABC. First we have Enjolras. Enjolras is the leader of the group. He's uncomparably beautiful. Victor Hugo has to take a paragraph every single time Enjolras shows up anywhere to just wax poetic about how beautiful he is. Like I said, leader of the revolution. He's very intense, cares really deeply about intersectional equalities, kind of an idiot when it comes to personal connections and feelings. His girlfriend is France. Not a human girl, just France. So we've got Combeferre. He's like Enjolras' best friend, bookish, doctor, loves studying moths. In a metaphor where society is a clay valley, Enguerrand wants to flatten it and then build a new one. Combeferre would reshape what's already there and guide it to a better structure. Jean Prouvaire, he is the only one of them to get a first name. Nickname is Jihan. He's a romantic poet, free spirit, loves flowers, usually portrayed in fandom as non-binary. Fei, he's not actually a student in the canon. He's like an orphan who works as a fan maker. So, you know, he's like poor. He can't afford to be a student. He's an orphan. Really big on nationality. Not just like his own nationality, but just the concept of nationality in general for all people. Never got over the 1772 partition of Poland. Courfeyrac, the heart of the group. Enguerrand's the leader, Combeferre's the guide. Courfeyrac is the heart. It's often the three of them are often portrayed in the fandom as like a sort of golden trio. Enguerrand, Combeferre, Courfeyrac. Courfeyrac is kind of like a wild, crazy guy. You know, he likes partying and girls and whatnot. He's generally always in good spirits. He's actually Marius's best friend and roommate. He is the person who introduced Marius to Les Amis. He met Marius when Marius was absent from class to attend his father's funeral, and the teacher was totally going to just strike Marius from the class record for being absent. So Courfeyrac was like, no, I'm Marius. I'm here. Marius is here. So the teacher was like, all right, Marius is here. Courfeyrac is absent and is not allowed in this class ever again. So Marius got to stay and Courfeyrac got kicked out of the class, even though he didn't know Marius at all at that point. Marius was like, oh my god, why would you do that for me, random guy? But they became friends that way. He's also the one who like invited Marius to come live with him when he saw that Marius was, you know, poorer than dirt. In Mulan, Courfeyrac would be Ling, the soldier who heads the Girl We're Fighting For song. Got Baharel. He's a real Gryffindor type, really. He's a brawler. He goes to inns looking for bar fights. He loves fighting riots, revolutions. He wears this bright red waistcoat proudly and boldly. He's very come at me, bro. He's, you know, but he's generally like high-spirited about it. It's not violence that's like, oh, violence, hurting people. It's more like, yeah, fighting. I don't know. Who else we've got? We've got Bossuet. Bossuet's name is actually Legal. It's sometimes referred to as Legal or Legal. Okay, I'm pronouncing it all the same, but I'm gonna put the spelling here on the screen. Anyway, his friends call him Bossuet. He's bald, even though they're all just in their 20s. Extremely unlucky, like ridiculous levels of unlucky. But, you know, really cheery about it. Couch surfer, law student. Spends a lot of his time with Jolie, because Jolie is a medical student. He's a hypochondriac, so he like always thinks he's sick or dying, but you know, he's also really high-spirited in the face of his misfortune. Sometimes they call him Jolie because of another pun, which is you can soar on 4 ailes. Ailes being wings. Anyway, Jolie and Bossuet are in a triad relationship with a woman named Mouchetta. Yes, I'm serious. Hugo absolutely went there. I know that was a lot of names. Only one more. I promise. The last person of the group is Grantaire. He is just called R sometimes because these are dumb college students who love puns. And Grantaire is like saying Grand Air, which is like saying capital R. Grantaire is the cynic of the group. You know, they're all gung-ho activists, and he's just sitting in the back, like, shooting down all their ideas, like, that'll never work, people will never change, no one cares, everything sucks. He's a total alcoholic. He drinks wine so often that he has a permanent wine stain on his skin. Modern AUs in the fandom, modern fics, will either make an issue of this or they won't. He is actually the most on the level of the rest of them, in terms of, like, knowing the streets and the locals. Like, he's that guy who he knows where the best hole-in-the-wall cafes are, things like that. In fandom, he's, like, always portrayed as an artist, especially a fine artist, you know, paintings, sometimes sculptures. But I think technically he actually isn't ever mentioned to be any sort of painter or anything like that in the novel. But it's one of those things that has become so entrenched in the collective fandom headcanon that, like, everyone goes with it. Really big on Greek mythology. He's always going on these long drunken rants about, like, the Greek gods, and also about Ajin-Ra, and how Ajin-Ra is, like, the fierce sun god Apollo and stuff like that. The biggest thing about Ganter, his, like, defining characteristic besides being a cynic, you cannot have Ganter without this, is that he is absolutely ridiculously head over heels for Ajin-Ra. He just, like, I mean, he's such a cynic. Like I said, he spends all his time sitting in the back of the room poking holes in Ajin-Ra's idealistic plans, and Ajin-Ra hates it. Ajin-Ra, that is, cannot comprehend Ganter. He's just like, he's always like, why are you here? You don't even believe in anything. But see, Ganter believes in Ajin-Ra. And Ajin-Ra, like an idiot, he has no idea. It's, like, super painful for all of their friends. So Ajin-Ra is just, like, always dismissive of Ganter. I hate this guy, I don't understand him. And Ganter's like, oh my god, I love Ajin-Ra. He's the sun, he's everything, he's my reason for being, he's the fire that lit my world and made it warm. Like, he's like, I hate everything he stands for, I hate all his ideals. He's like, because they're all... He's like, I think it's so terrible and sad that he thinks this is all gonna work. It's not gonna work. He's gonna get shot down like a crumpled, like, bird, but he's my reason for being. It's crazy. There's all these, like, really sad moments in the book where, like, Ganter will, like, Ajin-Ra's looking for volunteers to do something for the revolution, and Ganter's like, I'll do it. And Ajin-Ra's like, you don't believe in anything. You don't care about the revolution at all. And Ganter's like, well, let me try it. Let me do it. Let me prove myself to you. I can do it. And Ajin-Ra's like, all right, I'll let you do it. Like, go ahead, prove yourself to me. And then Ganter completely doesn't do it. He's just, like, fails, and Ajin-Ra's opinion of him just gets lower, and it's all really terrible. At the end of the barricade fight, like, everyone's dead except for Marius, because, you know, Marius is unconscious and being carried away by Valjean. And Ajin-Ra is, like, backed into a corner by the firing squad. They have him up against a wall. Ajin-Ra's like, he's just presenting themselves to him. He's like, go on, shoot me. It's like, I will die a martyr for the revolution. And the guards, like, one of the soldiers is like, just throws away his sword. He's like, I can't do it. I can't. It would be like shooting a flower. I'm serious. That actually happened. That actually happened in the book. But Ganter is also still alive at this point. It's only the two of them and Marius left. Ganter, the reason Ganter is alive is because he actually has not been participating in the fight at all. He's been sleeping. He's been having some, like, drunken nap the entire time. But he wakes up. He could probably just get away scot-free because it's not like he actually did anything with the revolution. But he sees that all these guys are about to kill Ajin-Ra, so he goes over there. He's like, hey, kill me too. Let me die too. So he goes, he asks Ajin-Ra for permission. He's like, will you permit it? Will you allow me to die beside you? And they hold hands, and then they get shot dead. So that kind of sucks because it's like, the moment that they finally manage to reconcile, their story ends. So a lot of fan fiction and stuff in the fandom pairs the two of them together, Enjolras, Grantaire. Although I have seen some really compelling arguments for Enjolras and Combeferre. Other things that are very common in the fandom is Grantaire and Eponine being best friends and, like, you know, bad mental health buddies. There's, you know, the other typical stuff that you would expect from a fandom like this, like, you know, people ship Valjean and Javert together and things like that. From what I can tell, a really good portion of the Lemez fic out there is modern AUs of various types. Honestly, they are wonderful. I told someone once that a lot of the fic was modern AUs, and she was kind of like, what's the point of that? I think the point is probably that this way they aren't all about to die horribly, but they could still be huge activists. But yeah, I mean, obviously there are a lot of canon era fics. There are fics that focus on people other than this group of characters. I'm just saying that it's a large chunk of it, so you'll probably run into that a lot if you are exploring the fandom. Anyway, that's it. That's the basics of the Les Misérables fandom. If you haven't seen it yet and it's not a problem for you, I really do recommend taking just a few hours to watch the 2012 movie. It's excellent. Hopefully this little guide will help anyone starting out trying to navigate the Lemez fandom. If you're, you know, you see some of your friends are always talking about it, you have no idea what they're going on about. I hope this helps. Lemez is pretty long and it has a lot of characters, a lot of moving parts. You know, maybe if I ever do another fandom crash course video in the future, it'll be more simple if I use a more simple canon. I don't know. What do you think? Does anyone have any Lemez fandom questions? Are there other fandoms that you might like to see me do a crash course in? Let me know in the comments and I will do what I can. Alright, well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.